In yet another example of how time is terrifyingly slipping through our grasps, and before you know it, we'll all just be bones in the dirt or dust blown on the wind. It's already been a full month since the OnePlus 7T was released here in the UK. And while previous T-series handsets were basic updates over the original models, this time around OnePlus decided to rip all of the awesome tech out of the OnePlus 7 Pro, launched earlier in 2019, and then slap it into that entry-level OnePlus 7T handset. From the stunning 90Hz fluid display to the flexible triple lens camera, there's some impressive features packed into this bad boy, where you also get the latest Android 10 OS and Qualcomm's Billy Big Bollock Snapdragon 855 Plus platform, making the OnePlus 7T fresher than your nan's buns. So spoiler alert, yes, the OnePlus 7T is a bloody good phone, but is it one of the best of the year? And are there any little issues cropping up after that honeymoon period has well and truly ended? Well, here's my full OnePlus 7T 1 month review, and for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Let's start as ever with design, and the OnePlus 7T features a smarter, more refined finish compared with the previous OnePlus 7. It's slightly slimmer and longer now, and combined with that curved glass back, it sure feels nice in the hand, for now. The most obvious change to the design is of course that circular camera grille housed on the back, something that's been popularised by the likes of Nokia, Motorola and Huawei. This definitely looks a lot neater than the previous effort, and although it does jut a fair way from the surface, it is nothing too troublesome. The design choices are a bit more limited with this generation, however. The glossy version found on the OnePlus 7 has been killed off entirely, so you can only grab the OnePlus 7T in this matte glass finish instead. Luckily for me, that's my favourite anyway, because it's an awful lot less smudgy than the glossy effort, makes it much easier to keep clean. And if you don't want to spunk up extra cash for that snazzy McLaren edition, then your only colour choices are silver or this here blue model, both sporting a subtle gradient finish. And the good news is, even a month on, the OnePlus 7T still looks fresh out of the box. You get a tough bit of Gorilla Glass 5 plating around back, and that's been upgraded for Gorilla Glass 6 for the display, and as if that wasn't enough, you also get a screen protector slathered across the front end of this phone, and you get a prophylactic case bundled in the box if you're super paranoid. So basically, on the Jason Statham scale, this motherflucker gets a full-on 5 rating. It's tougher than a slice of Beefeater black pudding. Now power up the OnePlus 7T and you will of course be greeted with this gorgeous 6.55-inch fluid AMOLED display. It's a full HD Plus panel, and despite the size of it, those visuals are super crisp, while the fresh new 20:9 finish is perfectly suited to a spot of Netflix on the commute. And yes, there is a dinky nipple notch up top, something that you don't get in the Pro version because of the pop-up camera, but it really is dinky here and barely intrudes at all even if you go full screen. And unlike rival devices around this price point and much more expensive than it, you also get a 90Hz refresh rate on this display as well, which is superb for gaming and makes your everyday navigation just look silky smooth. More on the gaming side of things in a bit. As usual, you can play around with the colour output in the settings, but I like to leave it on OnePlus's Vivid setting, as those hues really do smack you right in the mug. You get sharp contrast too, thanks to the HDR10 support, which is fully supported in the likes of Netflix. And no problems as far as the brightness is concerned either, because this bad boy tops out at a stunning 1000 nits, definitely strong enough to clearly see what you're doing on a sunny day, or just generally used as a weapon to blind any attackers. Oh. Plus, of course, the usual night mode shenanigans are back on board for a comfy viewing experience when you're rotting your brain with YouTube stuff at 3 AM. As for the audio front, well, it's a full-on stereo speaker setup here on the OnePlus 7T, complete with Dolby Atmos support, and it's definitely loud and punchy enough to be clearly heard, even in a very noisy environment. A more spacious 10-inch display, but it's also proper full HD as well, 1920. Yeah, that'll definitely piss off the grannies on the bus. Sadly, the headphone jack is once again missing in action here on the OnePlus 7T, but the Bluetooth connection was perfectly dependable and stable enough even in busy central London locations, so no worries on that front. We have a bit of a gander at the software. It's yet another win for OnePlus. This is still one of the only mobiles in 2019 to come packing Android 10 out of the box. From the dark mode to the slick gesture navigation, there are loads of improvements on offer, and slathered on top of Android is OnePlus's own customizable OxygenOS launcher, which throws in even more features. For one, you get a typically excellent bit of face recognition to back up that in-display fingerprint sensor, both of which stand tall against rivals. That Zen mode feature is also back in action, allowing you to block out the world for a set amount of time. Not a good one for any FOMO sufferers, but definitely a good plan for date night. Overall, I really like the OnePlus 7T UI and general user experience. It does everything that I need it to, and it doesn't feel like a particularly heavy launcher, certainly compared with a lot of rivals out there. And for all of your apps and all of that shenanigans, you get 128 gigs of storage, although sadly that's not expandable via microSD. Boo. And no complaints on the performance front from the OnePlus either. Not much of a shock given that the latest Snapdragon 855 Plus chipset is backed by 8 gigs of RAM. PUBG Mobile plays on top data levels at a super crisp 60 frames per second, which of course looks amazing on that next-gen display. And the game space feature is back in action, also complete with notifications blocking, network enhancement tools and the like. Check out my full OnePlus 7T tips and tricks guide for a closer look at that and some of the other OxygenOS software features. The 3800 mAh cell stuffed inside the OnePlus 7T is only a minor upgrade over the OnePlus 7's 3700 mAh cell, but it'll basically still keep you going all day long, nice and dependable, even if you're using this thing as a sat-nav, a gaming device, entertainment, media streamer, whatever you want basically, no problem there. 1 month on, no dip in performance as you kind of hope. And charging the wee bugger back up again is also incredibly fast. That Warp Charge 30T tech means that you get a full battery in pretty much bang on an hour. That's faster than almost every single other rival out there. As usual, there's no support for wireless charging, but to be fair, that's pretty rare to find at this price point anyway. So now onto that triple lens rear camera, which offers a very similar setup to the older OnePlus 7 Pro. For your everyday shot, to get a 48 megapixel lens with f1.6 aperture and built-in optical image stabilization. Plus it uses Sony's popular IMX586 sensor. And at any point you can also swap to the 16 megapixel ultra-wide angle lens or the 12 megapixel telephoto lens for a very different viewpoint. My test pics came out perfectly well. Colors on the whole look natural, and it's rare to see any oversaturation in those HDR situations. Rather, the darker areas are likely to be a little bit murky, colors maybe a little bit weaker, but nothing serious, just a little lack of detail compared with some rivals. But you do get plenty of detail packed in every other shot, and I'd be happy to use this blower to capture those merry memories on a daily basis. All of the usual bonus modes have of course been crammed into the OnePlus 7T's camera as well, including a bit of pro action, so you can play around with the different levels and capture an up to 48 megapixel image in either JPEG or RAW format. Night shots are also pretty solid on that auto mode, but you also get a dedicated night mode here which boosts those darker bits while tempering any oversaturated areas. It's definitely a good effort. And that new macro mode is seriously impressive if you want to capture an up close and personal image, sucking up all of those finer details from just a couple of centimeters away. At any point you can of course swap to that ultra wide angle lens, handy for grabbing a landscape or cityscape pic, and you certainly get some dramatic results with warmer output than the primary lens. And it's good to see that the night mode is still available using the shooter as well. Alternatively, you've got the telephoto lens, which serves an up to 2x optical zoom to get closer to the action. It's not a patch on the Huawei P30 Pro of course, but it's definitely handy for touristy snaps and for shooting next door's cat. As for the video, you get up to 4K resolution footage at either 30 or 60 frames per second, great to see. Results are typically sharp and smart. Stabilization's pretty good, even at that Ultra HD level, and the audio pickup is absolutely fine. Things only really start to falter once you start to shoot at night. Apart from that, it's all good. As far as the selfie cam goes, it's OnePlus's usual 16 megapixel effort, once again absolutely fine for your Instagram pics. The portrait mode is pretty smart, with respectable edge detection given the single lens setup, and it's not too bad for indoor shots either. You get a little bit of softness, but nothing too tragic. So basically, a handful of minor flaws aside, the OnePlus 7T is a fantastic all-round device, and at 550 quid, it can basically take on any Samsung or Apple phone out there. Is it the best smartphone of 2019? Well, it's definitely right up there with the best, especially given the value for money. So that's what I think of the OnePlus 7T 1 month after it was released here in the UK. Have you got the OnePlus 7T? Have you been using it as your full-time phone as well? Well, definitely let us know what you think down in the comments below. Let us know if you're tempted by it, or if not, why not? And please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech. Cheers everyone.